Okay, thanks, Heather. I want to welcome everyone to today's webinar on DeltaThink's Open Access Data and Analytics Tool. We've had a great response to today's session, so thank you all for signing up, and we're looking forward to showing you the OA tool and answering any questions you may have today. We'll start off with a few introductions. I'm Lori Carlin, Chief Commercial Officer at DeltaThink and Senior Consultant, and I'll be moderating the session for you today. With me is the star of our session, Heather Staines, DeltaThink's Senior Consultant and Director of Community Engagement for the OA tool. Just a bit about DeltaThink to start, if you're not already familiar. We're a consulting firm working primarily in scholarly publishing and association management. We were founded, our founder, Ann Michael, started DeltaThink in 2005, and we've since grown to include a core team of 10 staff and an extended network of associates that at least doubles that number. And we've served over 125 clients to date at last count. We work in a number of areas, mostly focusing on strategy and analysis, technology strategy, business analysis and strategy, market research and marketing and go-to-market strategies, all around scholarly communications and membership management. And we've also seen a lot of growth in our education and books practice as well, especially over the last year or two. And of course, we own and maintain the DeltaThink Open Access Data and Analytics tool, which Heather is going to focus on today and walk you through. So with that, I will turn it over to Heather.
Thanks, Lori. I'm so excited to be here with you today and to be able to tell you about the Open Access Data and Analytics tool. Just a brief note, I had hoped my colleague Dan Pollock, who's the data whiz behind the tool, would be here. Unfortunately, Dan's under the weather, so I will do the best I can to answer your questions. Feel free at any time during the presentation to go ahead and pop things into the Q&A. Lori, as she said, is going to be monitoring that. I think we will hold questions till the end, and we should have plenty of time for questions. So let me go ahead and share my screen and we will get started. Great. It's funny to go back to working in PowerPoint after you've been in Google Slides for a long time. You have to reorient your brain. Wonderful. So let me tell you a little bit about the tool. I'm gonna show you a live demo as well, but some of the things I thought were better represented on slides. So what's the background behind the tool? So many organizations make frequent use of industry reports, but industry reports frequently presented in a PDF format. They can have a lot of, charts and data, but they're basically flat. They're not tailored, individually for your needs. And, once they're complete and disseminated, they're basically out of date almost immediately. So we were wondering, or I should say folks at DeltaThink at the time, but I'll channel them now, how it would be if we could create a sort of industry analyst report on steroids that could be, could break out of the limits of that static PDF, could be made interactive where the readers could actually chart, their own path. So as a result, the tool was launched in 2017. We have underlying data from a couple of open data sets, namely the Crossref and unpaywall data. Now, even though those data sets are open, we do a lot of work on that data to clean it up, to take into consideration different names of publishers, mergers and acquisitions and the like, that have happened. And on the paywall side, while our library and consortia customers are very, very interested in, say, repository data, our publishers, may want to have that segmented out for them. So those open data sets are supplemented by information from about 18,000 journal title lists that we look at regularly. Data from CWTS based in Leiden, the SCIMAGO data that comes in based on Scopus and Web of Science. And critically, many of you may participate already in the annual publisher survey that Delta Think conducts every year. And what's important about data from that surgery is it's the actual publisher activity. So it's more than you can get from just publicly available data. That information is aggregated, included in the tool. No confidences, are betrayed, but having that data in to supplement that available public information, I think really, changes things dramatically. So the tool includes our analysis, many interactive visualizations, and for subscribers, access to the underlying data, which you can download, incorporate in your systems, and use to supplement what you may have on hand already. So what are subscribers, using the tool for? I mean, it's growing all the time. It's been amazing for me to meet and greet existing subscribers and learn their specific use cases. But just as a brief description, publishers are using it to evaluate their existing journal portfolios, to try to set strategies moving forward, looking into the impact that different mandates may have on their publication outputs, and basically make data-based decisions. On the library and consortia side, looking at collections, underlying some, providing some research for negotiation strategies, perhaps on, read and publish agreements, managing the APC allocation and budgets for particular publishers or for particular subject areas, and looking at compliance as well. Then on the service provider and aggregator front, tracking trends across the scholarly communications ecosystem. And I should say it's both OA and non-OA trends. All of that data is in the tool. Looking to try to identify new business opportunities, enhancing their existing offerings as well. Contributing their own data perhaps to grow the underlying data set, and even publishing their own analysis. And we do frequently collaborate with our subscribers on publications and presentations. So let me actually go out of this presentation and go into the OA tool. I think I need to reshare again just to be sure that you guys can see my screen. Wouldn't want to make that mistake. 1 second. These pesky Zoom controls, they're always where you don't want them. So I hope that you can see my screen. Lori, give a shout if that's not the case. And so welcome to the homepage for the Open Access Data and Analytics tool. Because there's so much in the tool and we were only going to scratch the surface today, I just wanted to say a little bit about how you can navigate the tool when you are a subscriber. We do have a lot of information on our home screen here. It includes just some key data points and analysis from the different pages within the tool, some little thumbnails of some of the charts and graphs to refresh your memory. So we have all of that navigational aid available there. But we also have a quite extensive FAQ page on where to find things. It starts with a quick reference links at the top, which will jump you further down in the page. We've got a little bit more detail if you're looking, for example, for information on licenses, that you may want to go to the adoption of open access page, communication materials and advocacy, where that material can be found. And then we've divided things if you've got questions about journals, if you have questions at the article level, particular types of open access, et cetera. So we're really looking at how to improve your awareness within the tool. And it's something that I'm spending a lot of my time on as I've started. For our news and views subscribers who are joining us, we do, for convenient reference, include access to all of the news and views within the tool. And you can go back and search and the like. Now I'm going to do a deep dive into two sections of the tool, one in a live demo and one in some screenshot slides. But I just wanted to give you a little bit of an overview about other sections of the tool that could be particularly useful for you. One of the sections that we have updated recently is our business models and deals section. Many of you will know there's been a lot of activity going on around new business models and deals. We have a page that's dedicated just to definitions. And I've gotten an indication from many of our subscribers and potential subscribers that the information contained on this page could be particularly useful when onboarding new staff and the like who may not be coming from an open access environment. And so I'm going to probably be putting together some supplementary materials around this section. We do also track deals, as you know, if you're a news and views subscriber. So within this section, we've divided up the deals kind of into the types that are offered. We talk about the pros and cons of those different deals. And if you'll forgive me for scrolling down past transformative agreements, we do have examples of all of these different types of deals, and they're linked back to the publisher websites for more information. So it's a great way to get a start and a good overview, whether you're new to open access or whether you're kind of an old hand. We have an extensive section on funding that includes, you can see on the left-hand side navigation, some of the areas we have funding by sector. We have a section on library spending and also a section on funding by subject. We have a mandates and licenses section, which is also quite popular. And of course, as you know, lots of activity happening around this space. So it will save you a lot of time from, chasing down, what's new, what's changed and the like. We also have available our compliance analyzer, which is popular from our library and consortial standpoint, where you can go in and you can actually compare individual funder and publisher OA policies. I'm noticing that my internet is lagging just a little bit today, so let's hope that it will wake up as we move further down into the tool. If not, I will definitely jumpstart it. We have a section on books, which is recently updated, and I'm happy to see many book publishers joining us today. We just did 2 news and views over the summer with some data behind open access books. So I do, highly recommend, if you haven't visited this page for a while, if you're a subscriber, there's a lot of data that's parsed and diced and sliced for books. I will also draw attention to our methodology section, which details a lot of the underlying assumptions that we make when we're looking at the tool and updating it, some of the challenges, some of the caveats, and the like. And we'd love to get your feedback on that page. So I promised a deep dive. So let me go into the first section. And this is one section I know a lot of our subscribers are paying a close attention to. So, what are subscribers using this entire section of the tool for? Well, they're carrying out competitive reviews and looking at key areas around pricing, which I'll show you. They're benchmarking their own pricing against those of other publishers to make sure that their own prices are stacking up, and they're often advising their own publishing partners around that area. We provide a lot of at-a-glance visualizations for typical maximum and minimum pricing around APCs, so you can see how that may compare with different price bands. You can see patterns within hybrid and in fully open access journals. You can better understand the relationship between price, journal impact, and different business models. And you can see how this data varies across more than 300 subject areas and by publisher's geography. So when we start here in our article processing section of the tool, you'll see an organizational structure that carries out throughout the entire tool. So at the top, you'll have some quick orange links that will take you further down in the page. Then we offer some key takeaways. So if you really have a short period of time and you want to get an overview, I recommend starting with the key takeaways. And then we provide some representative charts from the section. And so this chart here, which I'll get back to in a second, is on typical APC ranges for publisher. And then below, we go into a lot more detail on the analysis based on the key takeaways up at the top. So here in our typical APC ranges per publisher chart, we refer to this kind of internally as the what's cheap, what's expensive, and what's typical. So you can see here depicted in the chart, the blue indicates the hybrid ranges and the gold represents the OA ranges. And what we're showing here are the highest to lowest ranges for pricing. I'll note that we've excluded the $0 APCs for these publishers, and most of you know for journals, there will be waivers and discounts and the like, but we wanted to sort of indicate that list price range. So we have that depicted here. You will also see some red dots and blue dots that indicate the average and the median. And this is based on the data that we receive from our publisher surveys and beyond. So it's not just taking the highest range here and the lowest range here and making an average. There's significantly more behind it. So you will also see there is a little dotted, I hope you can see, a little dotted blue line, as well as a dotted orange or gold line that goes across, where you can see the averages across all of these different publishers for the hybrid and the fully OA APCs. So we can see here across this representative sampling of publishers that the hybrid average is about $3,100 and the gold is about $1,800. So try to keep those figures in your head. As I mentioned, all of these charts are interactive. So let's go in and actually change the publishers we're depicting here on the chart. So first thing I'm going to do is deselect all of the publishers that are represented here by default. And let's look at, say, just chemistry and physics publishers. So I'm going to grab ACS, AIP, APS. Let's scoot down just a little bit. I can't do my alphabetizing and talk at the same time. IOP, and I'm going to grab RSC. So I'm going to hit OK. And this chart is going to redraw based on the underlying data. And we'll see, quite a different picture here. Just looking at, again, the blue and the gold lines, we can see that the average APC for hybrid has jumped from that 3,100 range up to over 3,400. And our average for gold has jumped from the 1,800 mark to 2,100. So there's a lot of subject area and publisher analysis that you can do based on this chart. Let's move on to another page. This is the APC Pricing Examples page, and this is a brand new page from this summer. And we really wanted to put this page in because we had a lot of questions from publishers about the factors that might influence price, including the type of content that those APCs are attached to. So here we have a lot of information. And again, we've saved you the time from having to chase down this data from quite a variety of publishers across the different areas of scholarly communication. Each one of these sections will link out to examples, on the initial publisher site. And if you have information around content types that you'd like us to include, reach out. We'd like to see, more publishers' data represented here. Moving along, we can only scratch the surface, so we can't spend too much time on any of these, unfortunately, but I'm happy to do a one-to-one demo that will take you into more detail. So this is our publisher APC Ranges page. So as I scroll down and my chart is drawing here, hopefully, we're going to see my husband teaching online school in another room. So it's for a good cause. If it's taking just a few seconds longer than we would like to load up, I will refresh it if it doesn't come in just a second. All righty, we've given you enough time. OADAT, I'm going to refresh it. I sometimes find that, you know, as you will, goosing it will make it magically appear. And thankfully that's the case. So again, this is our distribution of price points. So this is a histogram. And I will say, I'll show you in a moment that you can actually redraw these charts into a number of different formats that meet your needs. So in this case, this is a histogram, and this shows the most common price points for APCs for different publishers. You can see across the right-hand side of the screen, the publishers that are depicted here by default. And we can see that our most common APC ranges, we've got here in the 2,500 to 3,000 range, shortly followed by the 3,000 to 3,500 range. And you can hone in on different bands. For example, this is the TNF selection of titles. And if you actually click on that, it's going to pull up a table. And that table is an example of the format for the underlying data that you'll be able to export if you're a subscriber for the tool. Let me go ahead and close that out. So again, this here is the fully OA plus hybrid put in together. And so let's go ahead and see what changes if we actually just say we want to see only the fully OA ranges. So we see that the top price point has shifted a bit to the left in the 1,000 to 1,500 zone, shortly followed by the 1,500 to 2,000 and the 2,000 to 2,500. So a lower and broader range of APCs there. Important thing, to note, as we're going through, we're pulling together, thousands of data points on these APCs, again, taking a lot of the legwork out of it so that you don't have to do that either within your team, or if you are the sole provider of data, this is going to be a huge time saver. So we're looking at the spread of publisher APCs here. And again, you can go in and see the different ranges. We also, if you are a table person rather than a graph and chart, we start with a table here, again, completely interactive. And this data for subscribers can be exported in a number of different formats. Moving along, one of the frequently asked questions that I get when I'm demoing the tool is the relationship between pricing and impact. So in those other sections, we've looked at, maybe what's cheap and what's expensive and what are the patterns in pricing. Let's look a little bit more deeply at what might cause or influence the setting of pricing. So we think of this internally as the bang versus buck chart. My colleague Dan has got, nifty names for all of these to help us keep track. So this chart is going, you'll see here, is going to plot perceived impact against the cost of the APCs. Now, we know that a measure of impact, the impact factor, as most of you will have heard of, is not meant to be equated to quality. We also know that a lot of people do use it that way, but you also know you can't compare impact factors across different subject areas. So what we're using behind this chart is the sourced normalized impact per paper, which I'm expecting a lot of you will also be familiar with. And this comes from the CWTS and Leiden from their journal indicators data set. So on this chart, each dot indicates a journal. If you hover over, it will open up. And again, this is the underlying data that will be exported for subscribers to the tool. I want to draw attention that the number 1 line here, this is going to indicate the average citation frequency for a subject. So we've normalized across all the subjects. So what is this chart saying to us? Well, it's basically saying that there really is no relationship overall between the cost of an APC and the perceived impact for that content. For hybrid, it's kind of a big blob. And if we deselect hybrid and have this chart redraw just to depict the gold OA, we will see if there is a pattern on the gold front that we can identify as well. I hope everybody's going to send some mental energy pulling for me that my bandwidth holds out. Thank you for those of you contributing your mental energy. And on the gold front, we're really not seeing a pattern. If we were seeing a pattern, we'd see a nice sort of ascending diagonal line. Now, one of the things that I like to do, many of you know I'm a historian by training. I talk about it all the time, so you probably know that. Let's look at how this blob might be affected if we take it from all subject areas and we try to narrow down. So let me deselect all, and let me just grab the arts and humanities and social science journals and see what happens to our chart as a result. Going to tap into that. This is like everyone clapping for Tinkerbell to get their wings. I love it. So here we see, whoops, I'm in my fully OA. Let me add my hybrid back in there. And we'll see that overall, there are many fewer options to publish gold OA if you are in the arts and sciences and humanities. But this is a really fun one, as I mentioned, to play around with. So let's look at the pricing and impact per publisher. That was the pricing and impact, for journal. And let me scroll down here to another of my favorite charts, which is a bubble chart. And this is the pricing and impact metrics per publisher. So in this case, we've taken the data around all of the journals in a publisher's portfolio, and we've plotted these bubbles on the chart. Excuse me. So one of the things about this chart is you can only see the name of the publisher if the bubble is big enough for the name. So unless you have a really short name, we're going to have to hover over you. In this case, here we see the data pop up on ACM. So let's go in. I mentioned before that you could change these charts. Let's change this to a scatter chart. Now I can see all of my publisher names depicted there with the central point, of their bubble. And there's still a lot going on this chart. So let's go in and actually cut down the number of publishers that we're choosing here. So let's go ahead and look at, some of the larger publishers. So let's do Elsevier, Springer Nature, Taylor and Francis, and Wiley. And then just for kicks, let's grab a couple of other publishers as well. So I'm going to grab PLOS and ACS. I'm going to redraw the chart. So really what we're looking at on this chart is what are the prices of the APCs, they're depicted on the left side, versus the perceived impact. So let's look at, say, Elsevier Hybrid, which is hanging out over here. And, it's along the line with a lot of other hybrid APCs for publishers. But, in this case, Elsevier is a lot further to the right, indicating that overall, the hybrid journals have a higher perceived impact, according to SNP, than some other journals, some other publishers. And the picture for gold is a little bit less clear. We got a group that's kind of huddled up here in the middle. You might be wondering why I threw some other publishers on. Let's just, look at some examples. We can see that ACS Hybrid over here carries a little bit of a higher APC price than some of the others, but is also fairly far to the right there in terms of impact. And on the gold front, wow, look at PLOS. It's way out here to the right, and pricing wise, kind of middle of the pack. So there's a lot that you can really learn from this chart. Now, one of the differentiators to OADAT, which I can't really talk about enough is that we do include data over time. So let's look a little bit more closely at these changes in APC over time. So here we go. And again, when you're looking at a static industry report, they may include the most recent year of data, or you may go in to a website that depicts the most recent year of data. But we do like to be able to track trends over time. We're tracking data back as far as the 2015, 2016, as you can see over here on the right of the chart, and the colors change in accordance with the year. Now we take an annual snapshot every January of our publisher ranges here, but the journals, as you know, may change their APC pricing at any point during the year. So that's why we give a year range so that we can, be able to do those comparisons. So here we're looking at the distribution in APCs over time, and we can see from our early years that it's actually become cheaper overall over time. But look what's happening here in the long tail. There are quite a number of journals that have increased their APCs over time. So this is an indication from our side that publishers are getting better at looking at the data, figuring out which journals they might want to reduce an APC price on, which one they might want to increase. And so it's a lot more of a complex picture than you might think of, just immediately taking a look. So this is the APC changes over time. So what I'm going to do actually now is I'm going to jump back into my slides to do a detailed section in the market sizing and dynamics. Yes.
Heather, before you do that, we have one question about the APCs. And one of our participants is wondering if we split the APCs by article type as well.
Yeah, one of the reasons that we wanted to put this new section in the APC pricing examples is that is something publishers are looking at, much more closely. They're looking at what they give waivers on. They're trying to figure out if their waiver program is in line with other publishers' waiver programs. So that is data we're in the process of collecting. And if you have, information on that you'd like to contribute so that we could anonymize that, we'll be able to beef that up. A lot of publishers are not tracking that as closely internally, as would be useful, for us to put into our data. So, let's have some conversations around that, because this is a portion of the tool that we're looking at to beef up in the future. So let me go back to my slides. Thank you for that question. All right, I'm going to jump ahead a couple. So these slides are going to be available afterwards. And so I do have a couple of extra slides in here, and maybe I'll even put some more. I love to make slides. So now you may be wondering, market sizing and dynamics, why is Heather not doing a live demo for that portion? Well, we want to make sure that we show you what the tool does, but we don't inhibit any of our subscriber value to the tool. I'm happy to do a personalized demo for you where I'll go in and show you that section live. But for today's purposes, we thought slides might actually do the trick. So this is some information on our market sizing and dynamics. So again, what do subscribers use this for? Well, they're looking at market projections, and we include, as I said, over time, up to 7 years of the data. So it gives you insight into historical trends as well as future projections. And it's both on the volume and the value. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in just a second. And publishers are looking at this, libraries are looking at this in the context of overall trends. What are the environmental drivers that might be having an effect? What is our underlying analysis and estimates for market size and how that might change in future? We have a page dedicated to size and share that actually quantifies the number of and growth of both journals and articles. It shows uptake, it shows the spend. It's quite full of information. Other pages in the tool, we have an adoption of open access page, which breaks out the number of journals and gives more insight into green versus hybrid. We have a quantity and quality page, which looks at the impact-based measures for the fully OA journals. We've got more than 300 subjects that are depicted at both the journal and the article level, proportions by region, and we look at the different publisher shares of output and how that plays out in consolidation of the market. And I've got some slides on that as well. So our homepage for market sizing and dynamics, one of the popular sections of this page are our dials that you can see depicted here to the right. And this is showing what are the overall shares across the industry of the fully OA versus hybrid, and then the corresponding revenue. So you can see from these dials that it's just over 32% of content is OA between gold and hybrid, but those two sections together are making just over 7% of the revenue. These numbers, all the charts on this page can be adjusted to add in subscribed content as well. So the tool, I always like to point out, is not just valuable for OA, but valuable for all content types across the field. And an important note that I always want to make is around definitions. So we stick quite closely to the definitions around OA as being fully available to read and also to reuse, but we do call out information on what we call public access content, which is free to read, but may not necessarily for some reason be provided with a license to enable you to reuse it. So that's great information to have across the tool. So let's see. We have a section that goes into OA journals. And I want to draw your attention to some of the sources that are depicted here to the right. And we try to provide as many sources as we can. Directory of Open Access Journals, which is really our most inclusive data set, about 14,000 titles last time I checked. But we also include some sources that are a little bit more restrictive around what they index. For example, ORIX. So we've got about 6,500 to 7,000 ORIX journals included. And we also include data from the Crossref journals by type as well. One of the sections that I love to explore is a section around regional dynamics, and this is around the uptake of open access by region. So I've honed in here on some of the interactive metrics that you can choose across the top of the tool, when the data is included, major territory, what types of analysis. And along the right-hand side, you'll see all of the major regions that we do pull out data about. Let's drill down and look at Europe. So here are all of our countries that we track data on within Europe. So you can see, and here, that sort of bronzy color indicates the public access. So that's stacked up on top of the gold and the hybrid. And you see the closed content there as well depicted. There are other ways that you can analyze the data in this section, and we're probably going to pull out a section just on Plan S because there's so many questions that are coming around it. So for the Plan S countries, you can depict that data. You can also look at comparing the local and global uptake of different OA models. Africa, at the bottom of this chart, for example, you can see over 30% uptake within the consumption of OA journals. But at the moment, they're depicted to the right of the zero. Their article output for the region is significantly lower. So we are eager to see how this is shifting over time, depending upon funder mandates, depending upon national priorities, et cetera. Trends in regional uptake of OA. Again, differentiator of the tool is the fact that we track this information over time. Please note those regions at the right-hand section of the screen. I'm going to say let's go into more detail on South America and see what's happening there. So these are the major countries for which data is available for. No surprise probably to anyone on this call to see the large participation in the region, that comes from Brazil, and to be able to drill down in more detail on, what's happening in the trends for that regional uptake. We can also look at the uptake of OA by subject. Again, drawing your attention to the right-hand portion of the screen. These are the highest level subject sections that we track, and we do offer quite the ability to drill down. So let's hone in a little bit more closely on life sciences, for example. So here we got some more granular data on life sciences depicting, again, that gold hybrid public access and closed content, agricultural and biological, biochemistry, genetics, immunology and microbiology. And we can even go another level deeper. So let's hone in on that agricultural and biological sciences. So there's a very, very granular data that you can get on subject areas. And because I know it's probably tiny on your side, we can zoom in and see that a little bit more closely here. So you can go as deep as you like around these different subject areas. It's something that's tremendously useful that I find. Also, in this section of the market sizing, there's adoption of open access over time. There's the share of global output of subject over time, and journal size by subject. And I didn't draw attention in the navigation, but we do have information about mega journals. So you can exclude mega journals from some of these journal sizing. But if that's the reason that you've come in, we do have a lot of information about mega journals as well. Last section that I want to go in and take a closer look at is around publisher dynamics. We've got a lot of publishers joining us today. So this may be a section that will be interesting for you. So we have it currently depicted here on a pie chart. And if we start at 12 o'clock and move around to the right, we can see that the top 10 publishers make up about 50% of our pie. And if we look at the top 50 publishers, then we're really about 2/3 of the way through our pie here. So that final third being, made up with a long tail. So let's go ahead and look at the changing share of output for our top 50 publishers. So what we see here, this is the fully OA content. And each one of these colors does depict a publisher. And I'll draw your attention to one publisher that has a dramatic change over time, and that's the second from the bottom, this gold color. If we trace it over to the right, that's now at a 13.2%. That is MDPI. Another data point that comes from this chart is, really shows the consolidation, that long tail was really, got small back in, I need to move my Zoom controls again, back in the 2013, 2014 timeframe. So the consolidation was really peaking then, but we can see that it's gotten a little bit less since then. Now this is, as I mentioned, this is the peak consolidation around OA. But let's look at the changes, if I can get my cursor back. What happens if we click undo hybrid as an article type, which you can see there in the center top controls. So consolidation is definitely continuing on the hybrid side, even as recently as the last year of data included here. That long tail is getting smaller and smaller as things go forward. What about the proportion of output by publisher? And I've just grabbed a little tiny sliver of what's depicted in the tool here. just so you can see the kinds of data that would be available to you. So this is the proportion of output by publisher for journal type. So we can see there in gold, the fully OA, blue for hybrid, for publishers that are offering that OA option across their portfolio, and for content that does not yet have any type of a hybrid option. Let's change it to article type. We can see, how that changes, and see there the shift, the gold, the hybrid, the public access, and the paid access. And again, those definitions are very important. And if you're interested in what type of licenses are applied, you can go into that and see your OA license, more, whether it's more permissive or if it's a more restricted OA, and you can go in depth there. One more piece of information, we do have the proportion of output and publishers over time. So this will be the end of the scripted portion of the webinar. I hope you've stuck with me. The pricing model for OADAT is based on the size of the subscribing organization. Many of our subscribers are nonprofit. We take that into consideration. There is a seat-based model currently, but we're exploring other additional models, and we're happy to tell you more about that as your questions may come out. So, Lori, do you have
one thing? Well, one thing I was just going to mention, certainly with the market sizing, may have been with the APCs too. You'll note that in those charts, one of the variables you can change is the year. And I just note that some of the data that Heather was just showing in the market sizing was based on 2019, 2020 data collected from 2019. So as more data is added, that information will shift, and you can also go back to prior years to see what the data looked like in previous years and use that for trending as well.
Definitely. And I just will add to what Lori said that, we update different portions of the tool, throughout the year. We have kind of a regular update schedule. And so that's one of the things that we do try to let folks know about when we're communicating through newsletters and through our news and views.
Absolutely. All right. So if anyone has any questions, please feel free to put them in the Q&A. We had a couple of questions in there earlier, which we've answered. And so if there are any more, now is the time to ask them. And if not, we're happy to close out and give you 10 minutes more of your day.
I want to thank everyone for sticking with me. That was a lot longer than I had estimated. Lori was kind of laughing at me, but I hope that you found it valuable.
Absolutely. All right. Let's see. We have a couple of things in the chat, but mostly just thank you. So that's great. Thanks, everyone, as Heather said, for sticking with us. And so I think that will be a wrap for today's session, but please, and thanks so much, Heather, that was great. Thank you all for joining us, and please get in touch if you'd like more information. Also, just for further information, you may be interested in our next discussion session. So we hold, in conjunction with our news and views, which you can sign up for, we hold periodic, usually bi-monthly, discussion sessions on the topics that are discussed in the news and views. Our next session is scheduled for October 21st, and it will be a big one. It coincides with our yearly open access market sizing update. So a really well-attended and interesting topic. Everyone generally waiting for that update to come out every year. So do look for that information about registering. Registration should be opening sometime next week or so. And then also in closing, Heather and I will be in Charleston, or planning to attend the Charleston conference this year. So if anyone would like to meet in person and meet and chat with us, just to discuss what is going on in scholarly publishing today, or for anything in particular that you're interested in talking to us about, please do reach out and let us know. And with that, I think we are done. So thank you, everyone. Stay healthy, and we hope to see you all soon.